at the very edge of the world, where icy winds whistle through snow-covered wastelands, and only harsh shadows bear witness to what happens in the gloomy depths beneath the ice, there lies a place not marked on any map. It is shrouded in mystery, like an ancient spell, and calls to those who are willing to hear its call. The legend of this place is passed down from generation to generation among the few inhabitants of this desolate land, but every time the Silent Waters are mentioned, their faces are shadowed with fear, and conversations abruptly end. I, Anton, had always been drawn to such stories. I was a journalist whose imagination craved adventure, untold stories, and forgotten places. When I came across an old map with barely discernible markings on it, and one of the local elders whispered in my ear, "Do not go there," I felt I had found what I had been searching for all my life. Thus began my journey to the Silent Waters. My only companion on this journey was Eric, an experienced guide whom I had known for several years. Eric was a man of few words, stern and taciturn, but when I offered him the chance to accompany me on this expedition, he did not hesitate. Perhaps he was also drawn by the mystery, or perhaps he simply could not resist the opportunity to discover something new in this harsh world. Preparing for the trip took several weeks. We thoroughly examined all the available documents, maps, records of previous explorers, and journals. We found a few mentions of the Silent Waters, but they were fragmented, loosely connected facts and legends. It seemed that someone or something had intentionally tried to hide the truth from us. On the day we set out, the sky was covered with low gray clouds, and a light snowfall barely filtered through the dim light of the sun. We left the small town, the last bastion of civilization before our explorations, and delved into the endless snow plains. The journey started smoothly. Our path led us through icy plains where every movement required maximum caution. The snowfall gradually intensified, and the temperature dropped below freezing with each mile we covered. But this did not scare us. We were prepared for the challenges. One evening, when we set up camp at the foot of a hill, I began to feel as though we were being watched. But each time I turned around, I saw only the emptiness stretching to the horizon. Days passed, and we ventured deeper into the unknown. The surrounding nature became increasingly harsh, and each step grew more arduous. One day, as we were passing through a gorge, Eric stopped and carefully looked around. He was sure he saw something among the shadows of the trees, but before he could say anything, an icy fog descended from the sky, obscuring everything in its path. When the fog lifted, we saw a wide frozen river before us. It was the very river that, according to legends, led to the Silent Waters. We began following its course, hoping it would lead us to our goal. However, with each step I felt a growing sense of unease. The river seemed endless and appeared to lead us into emptiness. At some point, Eric suggested turning back. He said that this place should not be disturbed, that there was something here not meant for human eyes. But I was determined and confident. We pressed on. After several more days, we finally reached what we had been searching for. Before us lay a vast frozen lake, surrounded by cliffs and shrouded in deep silence. These were the Silent Waters. The surface of the lake was perfectly smooth, like a mirror, and it radiated an ancient chill. There was no sound around, only our own breathing. There was something wrong with this place. It was something indescribable, but deep in my soul, it stirred fear. We began our examination, exploring the surroundings and trying to find any traces of the past. Instead, we found strange symbols carved into the cliffs. These symbols resembled ancient runes, but they evoked a sense of dread. That night, as we set up camp on the lake shore, I heard it again. A whisper. It was unlike any ordinary wind or natural sound. It was something else. It was as if the very earth was trying to tell us something but couldn't. I looked at Eric and saw the same fear in his eyes. The next day, we continued our exploration. The deeper we delved into the history of this place, the more we realized that we were at the center of some ancient and cursed ritual. We found remnants of an old camp where apparently other explorers had been. But their traces ended abruptly, as if they had simply vanished. In their records, we read about the horrors they had experienced, strange dreams, visions, voices calling them into the depths of the lake. Eric became increasingly certain that we needed to leave. But I was drawn deeper. We reached the underwater caves described in the records and found an entrance hidden in one of the cliffs. I, forgetting all warnings, insisted on exploring them. The caves were ancient and majestic. Their walls were covered in carvings, and the air was heavy with the smell of dampness and decay. In the depths of the cave, we found what we were searching for, a massive underground chamber where an altar stood, surrounded by ancient statues. At the center of the altar was an inscription in an unknown language. I began deciphering it, and suddenly there was a noise, as if the earth itself was shaking. Water began seeping from the walls, and soon the entire chamber was flooded. We tried to return, but the way back was blocked. The water continued to rise, and soon we had to swim, trying to find an exit. It was a desperate escape, and only by a miracle were we able to reach the surface. Back on the shore of the lake, we realized that something had changed. The lake was no longer calm. Its waters began to churn, and the air around us grew cold and dense. We tried to leave, but each step felt like a push into the abyss. At some point, Eric stopped, and I saw terror in his eyes. He was staring at the lake's waters, from which shadows began to rise. They were closing in on us from every side. I tried to run, but my legs would not obey. The shadows surrounded us, and I heard their voices. They were not human voices, they were the call of the lake itself, which would not let us go. At that moment, I realized we had become part of this ancient story, and our presence here was part of some plan. I do not know how much time passed. I lost consciousness, and when I came to, I was alone. Eric was gone, and there were no traces of him. The lake was calm again, but I knew its waters hid much more than could be seen. I decided to leave, but I knew that the past would never let me go. When I returned to the city, no one believed me. My story seemed too incredible to be true, but every time I close my eyes, I see the silent waters and hear their call. I know they are waiting for me, and one day I will have to return.